You eat chicken almost every week. You crack eggs every morning. You buy them without thinking, but there is something happening on the other side of that meal that nobody ever told you. Half of all chickens born into this world are male, and almost none of them ever see a second day of life. 7 billion of them, every single year, gone within hours of hatching, not because they are sick, not because there is a shortage of food, but because of a decision the industry made decades ago that quietly shaped everything on your plate. Most people assume male chickens just get raised for meat like any other chicken. That seems logical, that seems obvious. But that is not what happens, not even close. And once you understand why, you will never look at a carton of eggs the same way again. Stay with me until the end, because the last part of this story reveals something about the modern food system that will genuinely change the way you think about what you eat every day. So let us start at the very beginning. A chicken egg hatches. A tiny wet chick stumbles into the world, fluffy, blinking, completely unaware of anything. Within the first few minutes of its life, a worker picks it up. They look at it, they check it, they make a decision in about 2 seconds. Is it male or female? If it is female, it goes on a conveyor belt to the right. If it is male, it goes on a conveyor belt to the left. And the belt on the left does not lead anywhere good. This process is called chick sexing. It happens in every single commercial hatchery on the planet, millions of times a day. And the reason it exists comes down to one thing. The egg industry and the meat industry are not the same thing. They are completely separate worlds, with completely separate animals. Here is something most people do not realize. The chicken that lays your eggs is a totally different breed from the chicken in your supermarket. They look similar, but genetically they were engineered for completely different purposes. Layer hens, the ones bred to produce eggs, were selectively bred over decades to lay as many eggs as possible. A modern layer hen lays around 300 eggs per year. A wild jungle fowl, the ancestor of every chicken alive today, lays about 10 to 15. That is a staggering transformation, all driven by selective breeding. But here is the cost of that transformation. When you breed a chicken purely to maximize egg production, something else gets sacrificed. The males of that breed become commercially worthless. A male layer breed chick cannot lay eggs, obviously, but it also cannot grow fast enough to be raised for meat. Layer breed males are too small, too slow, too costly to feed. By the time they would reach a slaughter weight, you would have spent far more money feeding them than they would ever be worth. So, from the moment the egg industry decided to separate laying breeds from meat breeds, it created an unsolvable problem. Half of every egg that hatches will be male, and those males have no place in the system. Now, here is what makes this even more striking: the scale of it. In the United States alone, around 300 million layer hens are in production at any given time. To maintain and replace that flock, hatcheries produce hundreds of millions of chicks every year. Half of those chicks are male. Globally, the number of male layer chicks culled every year is estimated at around 7 billion. 7 billion in a single year. That is nearly one male chick killed for every single human being alive on Earth, every year. But here is what is fascinating. This is not some secret conspiracy. It is not hidden in a dark corner. It is simply the mathematical reality of how the modern egg industry is structured. And for decades, no one really talked about it. It happened in hatcheries, behind closed doors, before most people ever thought to ask. So, what actually happens to them? There are two main methods used in hatcheries around the world. The first is maceration, which sounds clinical, but it means the chicks are killed by a high-speed grinder almost instantly. The second is gassing, where chicks are exposed to carbon dioxide. Both are considered humane by industry standards. Both happen on an industrial scale every single day. And both have been legal and standard practice for as long as the modern egg industry has existed. But why has nobody solved this? That is the question that started nagging at scientists, ethicists, and food companies about 10 years ago. And the answer is, it is actually one of the hardest biological problems in modern agriculture. Think about this for a second. A freshly fertilized egg looks identical whether it will hatch into a male or a female. You cannot see inside it. You cannot tell from the shell. And for most of the 20th century, the only way to know the sex of a chick was to wait for it to hatch and then physically examine it. The industry got very good at that examination. Trained chick sexers can sort thousands of chicks per hour with near perfect accuracy. But by then it is too late. The chick is already alive, Imagine if you could know the sex of the egg before it ever hatched. You would never have to hatch the male eggs at all. No male chick would ever be born into a situation it cannot survive. That was the dream of researchers for decades, and it turns out science eventually found a way. The technology is called in-ovo sexing. In-ovo means inside the egg. The idea is to detect the sex of a developing embryo while it is still inside the shell, in the first days of incubation, before any feeling, before any awareness, before the chick has developed a nervous system capable of experiencing anything. Several methods are being developed and tested. One approach uses a tiny laser to analyze the chemical composition inside the egg. Another uses a small blood sample taken through a microscopic hole in the shell. Another analyzes hormones in the air inside the egg. German researchers and biotech companies have been at the forefront of this work since the early 2000s, and the results have been remarkable. In 2019, a German startup called Seleggt introduced a commercial in-ovo sexing system. It works by taking a tiny sample from inside the egg on day 9 of incubation. The sex is determined. Male eggs are removed before they ever develop into chicks. Those unfertilized eggs are then used in other food products. Nothing is wasted. Female eggs continue incubating and hatch normally. The hens that eventually come from those eggs lay eggs sold under a specific certification label. It is called the Respeggt label in Germany, and consumers can buy those eggs knowing that no male chick was killed in the process. Germany went further than any other country in the world. In 2021, Germany became the first country to legally ban the culling of male chicks. The law came into force in January 2022. Hatcheries were required to either use in-ovo sexing technology or find an alternative. It was a historic moment. A country of 84 million people decided that the $7 billion a year problem was no longer acceptable, and they drew a legal line. Now, here is where it gets more complicated. Because the story does not stop with layer hens. Remember what I said earlier, the meat chicken industry is completely separate. The chickens you eat, the whole roast chickens, the chicken breasts, the nuggets, the thighs, those come from a completely different breed called broilers. And broiler chickens are raised differently, for a completely different purpose. Broiler chickens, both male and female, are raised for meat. So in the meat industry, male chickens are not killed at birth. They are raised, fed, and processed just like females. In fact, male broilers often grow slightly faster and larger than females. So in the meat world, the male chicken is not a problem at all. But broiler chickens carry their own set of astonishing facts. A modern broiler chicken reaches slaughter weight in about 6 weeks. 6 weeks. That is it. A chicken that will be eaten as a full-sized bird reached that size in less time than it takes most people to finish a university semester. In the 1950s, it took roughly 16 weeks to raise a broiler to slaughter weight. Selective breeding and optimized nutrition cut that time by more than half. The modern broiler has been so thoroughly optimized for fast growth that its biology is almost unrecognizable compared to its ancestors. Its breast muscles, the part humans prefer to eat, grow so fast that the rest of the bird sometimes cannot keep up. Skeletal and cardiac problems are common in commercial broilers because the body is being pushed to its absolute biological limits. And here is where the story turns back to you. Every time you eat a chicken breast, you are eating the product of one of the most radical biological engineering projects in human history. Every egg you crack has a hidden male twin that never made it. Not because anyone is cruel, but because of the way the system is structured. Demand for cheap eggs created a need for specialist layer breeds. Specialist layer breeds created a male surplus, and the male surplus created a problem no one wanted to talk about for decades. But here is what is fascinating about that silence. It was not denial, it was not deception, it was invisibility. The hatchery is not on the shelf next to the eggs. You do not see it. You do not think about it. And so for most of the 20th century, billions of people bought eggs without ever asking where the male chickens went. It is one of the most widespread unknown facts in everyday life, something that affects almost every household on Earth, every week, hiding in plain sight. And now that the question is finally being asked, it is changing things fast. In-ovo sexing technology is being adopted in several European countries. France made a commitment to phase out chick culling around the same time as Germany. The UK, the Netherlands, Switzerland, and others are all in various stages of developing or adopting the technology. In the United States, the transition is slower, but pressure from animal welfare groups and some major food companies is building. The science is improving every year. The cost of in-ovo sexing machines is coming down. What was once a niche ethical debate is becoming a mainstream food policy conversation. But the deeper question is not just about chickens, it is about what we choose to see. Every food system on Earth involves trade-offs. Most of those trade-offs happen far away from where you make your decision. At the supermarket, in the restaurant, at the breakfast table. You see the egg. You do not see the hatchery. You see the chicken breast. You do not see the 6 weeks it took to grow it. You see the price. You do not see what the price is optimized around. This is not a guilt trip. This is just the truth about modern food. It is abstract. It is industrial. It is almost entirely invisible to the person at the end of the chain. And that invisibility is not accidental. It is the design. Because the moment you start asking where your food comes from, you cannot unask it. And the moment countries start requiring answers, things begin to change. Germany changed the law, France changed the label, science changed the tool, all because someone finally asked a question that 7 billion male chicks per year had already answered with their lives. Why do we not eat male chickens? Because we built a system that made them worthless. And now, very slowly, we are building a new system that might not have to. The chicken on your plate and the egg in your fridge are products of a century of optimization. Optimization for speed, for volume, for price. And along the way, half of every hatched chick quietly disappeared from the story. Not from negligence, but from design. The question is not whether you knew. You did not. Almost nobody did. The question is what you do with the knowledge now that you have it, because that is the thing about invisible systems. They stay invisible until someone looks, and you just looked.